I am Michelle Miller, your host of the Royal Queens Rising podcast. We share our inspiring stories and secrets to our success. Hi, welcome to the Royal Queens Rising podcast. I'm your host, DJ RunDat. Today, I am so excited to interview TJ Welch. DJ, TJ?
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Welcome. So let's start out with how did you get into the DJ business?
It's kind of funny, actually. There was never like a point in my life where I'm like, I really want to DJ, where I feel like that's kind of the starting point for a lot of people. I was 16 and a half and I was really big into acting at the time. Like as a teenager, I did acting competitions and acting classes like twice a week. And my agent at the time was like, hey, I want you to go to find radio stations around you and just start going into them and try to talk one of them into letting you do like free spokesmodeling voiceover work we want to put it on your resume. So as a teenager, leaving high school, I was going into these radio stations with my headshot and my acting resume and pretty much saying that to the secretaries. And I feel like they probably they looked at me like, what do you want to do? Like not understanding. But one of the radio stations, luckily, like she gave it to their radio manager, and he called me like that night and was pretty much like, hey, like come in, let's just put you on the mic and see how you do. And like, maybe we have a spot for you. And so I went in there so nervous, like not knowing like what to expect. And he really did just have me read commercials and here, like, I thought like, oh, cool. Like I'll just be like reading scripts and I'll just come in and do that here and there and put it on my resume. But he ended up offering me an on-air radio job like right then and there on the spot. Yeah. And was like, I have a weekend spot opening up as a radio DJ if you would be interested in learning and coming in and training and shadowing under like the resident radio DJs. And I was just like, yeah, like I would love to do that. So that was like pretty much one of my first jobs. Is I was an on-air radio DJ personality on the weekends and holidays, and I would just fill in for the other resident radio DJs. And that started everything for me because I would be shadowing the other radio DJs. And the night radio DJ actually did weddings as well on the side. So I knew from like a very young age that that was a possibility as like a full-time career. So that really opened my eyes to just all the possibilities, I guess.
Wow, that is so cool. So I'm curious, what kind of music were you playing?
Yeah, we were an open format radio station, so it was definitely top 40 on the weekends. Like I totally did the Ryan Seacrest like show on Sunday mornings and like hosted that from our station. Um, and then a couple years later, they actually offered me like a full-time radio DJ position. And at that point, the spot that I was in was also open format, but I had freedom to kind of do whatever I wanted, which is unheard of nowadays. Like I would never get another radio position and have that opportunity. So I created like my own shows, and I would do like, top songs of the decades show and like create my own, like all of my own stuff for it, all of my own rings to them. And I could play pretty much whatever I wanted. So I am super grateful for that because I learned so many different genres of music and decades of like top 40s at 17, 18, 19, where I wouldn't have been exposed necessarily to like pushing myself to learn that type of music from a young age, which obviously helps me a lot today in a fun event DJ world.
Wow, you just got set up. Set up.
I mean, yeah, it was kind of like a boot camp to music in a way.
I love that. So at that point, did you continue to do acting?
I was still doing acting. I actually tried the move to LA right after high school. So like the week after I graduated, I packed my car with anything that I thought was important and my cat at the time. My cat rode out to LA with me.
Did you have a leash?
I don't remember. I don't think so. I don't think I ever put my cat on a leash. I wasn't that girl, I guess.
I flew with my friend and her cat from Hawaii recently. It was hilarious.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah, the cat pretty much stayed in like the rear window the whole drive out there and was totally fine. It was hilarious. But looking back, I'm like, why did I take my cat? That poor cat.
Yeah, so you weren't lonely.
Yeah. So I definitely tried the acting thing for a while. It was definitely culture shock. I grew up in a very small town in Ohio that's um like has a Walmart, and that's the highlight, and I go from that to moving out to LA and just being like, what am I doing? I don't know anybody or what I'm doing. I think my parents probably put too much faith in me. So it didn't last long, unfortunately. My mom pretty much flew out there and was like, you need to come home because you're in way over your head. And I always said I would go back, but life just took me a different way. So it worked out.
Yeah, they don't call it the city of dreams for nothing, I guess.
No, no. I still love acting though. It's exciting. I actually just signed up for an acting class, like just for fun, and I start next week. So I still love it.
That's awesome. So,
Yeah.
at what point did you really turn your DJing into, your own business?
Early 20s, I was singing in a band, so it's completely different.
Oh,
Wasn't in the radio side anymore. I'd moved to Florida by that point, and the club DJs or the clubs were basically like, "Hey, can you guys, throw on a mix like before or after the band set, or in between, or can you DJ a little bit?" So my bandmates were pretty much like, "TJ's gonna do that," threw me into that. Obviously we already had the AV and the equipment, and I understood the AV side of it luckily already. So it was just learning, getting the reliable computer and getting the music and sitting there and going through DJ pools each week, which really was kind of the same as radio, which was funny because we would get the CDs delivered to the radio station then, and I would sit and listen to them and try to figure out which ones were going to be the top hits to play, which was super cool at the time. Like that's not a thing anymore. But the same thing, I guess, with DJ pools. Like at the time, I mean, this was like 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, going through DJ pools and trying to figure out new releases and what I liked and what I was going to mix in the shows. And then I did like an online or online DJ school class because I didn't know how to mix or do anything. We didn't do that on the station. It was more MC and then just like playing the song. So just like very simple beat matching at that point. But the great thing was is since we were in bands and we were in really great nightclubs like up and down Clearwater Beach and Sarasota Beach and St. Pete. And some of the great DJs were resident DJs at those like clubby like beach bars would open those shows. So I got to shadow and hang out with them before the band went on, and get those introductions where anyone else, I feel like they would be like, shrug off the 21-year-old girl that wants to come up and watch them DJ.
oh, that's so cool. What was the style of the band? Like what kind of genres? I'm fascinated.
Yeah, Florida's very rock heavy.
Okay.
So like I'm totally a biker girl. Like most people don't know that about me, but I rode a Harley. I bartended in a biker bar like during the week and then sang in the bands. And so it's very rock heavy, classic rock, with top 40 stuff thrown in. So it would be anything from like singing Pat Benatar or like Bob Seger and then throwing in Black Eyed Peas.
Nice.
So yeah, definitely older crowd. You've got a lot of the retirees down there, Canadians coming down for vacation.
Mhm.
So just stuff that everybody would know, but very rock heavy, which was
That's
cool.
so fun. Oh my gosh, I got to be the resident DJ for this 3-day biker rally a couple years
Oh
ago.
my gosh.
I like opened up for I was the DJ in between all the bands, but like I opened up for like Everlast was one of the headliners.
Yeah, so cool.
Katie Seagal has a band, so she's Peg Bundy from Married with Children or Gemma from Sons
Yeah.
of Anarchy. Like she was the main headliner, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm on stage with Peg Bundy. Like
Yes, it's amazing.
it was cool. I just played like a lot of classic rock for the most part. It was
Yeah.
definitely out of my comfort zone, a big challenge, but tons of fun. Like they had like a freak show with like a half man. Like
Oh
like,
my God. That'd be so fun.
it was an experience I won't forget.
Right?
It was a fun one, but I mean, me they think RunDat the reggae girl, which yes I am, but I do it all really. So that was interesting. I love that you've ridden Harleys. Like that's so badass. I wish I was strong enough to ride a ninja bike. That's my dream.
Oh, I'm sure you are. I mean, I even now I have a Sportster and people are still like, are you, I mean, I get asked a lot, like if you dropped it, could you pick it up? And I'm like, no. So I don't drop it.
Yeah.
But you'd be
Yeah.
surprised at your own strength, I think.
For sure. So after the band and you started like taking classes online and then you just at what point were you like I'm going to like start doing my own thing?
Yeah, I got asked to do like a lot of karaoke shows at that time just because people knew I could sing and DJ. So it was just kind of like naturally I fell into that of doing a lot of or DJ KJ shows. And we were like the top KJ company at the time. Like I did it 7 nights a week. It was crazy. And we have multiple shows going around. That was when I first started getting into like training other women to like DJ. So my best friend at the time, when I started getting overbooked, I was like, you can do this. And I talked her into doing it because she could sing too. So she was actually my first like kind of like me getting into the multi-op of women and training her how to KJ. And then I had another girlfriend that I taught how to do it. So we were doing a lot of KJ shows. And then from there, obviously people would be like, oh, I'm getting married. Can you DJ my wedding? And I didn't know anything about weddings really at the time. So I finally said yes to one that was like a friend of a friend. It was supposed to be like a laid back, like chill wedding. And I was like, I can do this. So I basically signed on board to intern for a wedding planner for 6 months because I really didn't know anything about weddings and I didn't want to go in unprepared. So I did an internship with her before the wedding and just kind of like space it out that way so that I could see other wedding DJs and like understand the behind the scenes of the weddings and learn what I was doing, which was a very smart move, like looking back, because now I know how to coordinate the wedding if I'm put into that position, and just like, keep vendors like all on the same page throughout the night. So once I got that first wedding done, which I mean, that first wedding is a whole story in itself. It was a nightmare. Like, I feel so bad even thinking about it. Not really like my fault, just Florida weather. It was outside and they didn't have a plan B and it poured like out of nowhere. It was a 2% chance of rain and it poured and they didn't have me covered. It poured on all of my equipment and I was sitting there like with trash bags, like trying to save my controller, putting trash bags on my speakers, all this stuff. Um, so I learned a lot from my first wedding, to say the
That's
least.
kind of happened to me too, like sort of similar.
So terrible. Um, but I think, I mean, even though like I basically cried on the way home from that wedding because it was just, I was like freaking out that I had lost and ruined all of my equipment. But it was still like, I love weddings. Like I love the story behind people. And from there on, like I still did clubs, but I was definitely on the movement of, I want to do like private events and weddings only. And then by the time I had my son, he just turned 4. I was at that point, I pretty much made the decision. I'm done with clubs. I couldn't do the late nights anymore. I wanted a better life. And I was already pretty good at the business side. And I was like full on sprint at that point of I'm going to do this full time and not be doing like, because at the time I was doing club DJing and working for a law office and doing weddings and doing way too many things. And at that point, I was like, blinders on, this is what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I found myself really burnt out doing way too many things and juggling the kids. And
Yeah.
now that I just mainly focus on weddings, and
Yeah.
I'll sometimes do concerts or private events or the club just for fun more so, not
Mhm.
just to like play for the public too. You want to make sure, like your fans get a chance to see you also. But I think that
Yeah.
was the best decision I ever made because I'm able to create a schedule that works around my kids' schedules. And that's like the biggest blessing. Like I'm here for them all week, all week.
Yeah.
And weekends during the winter. So, yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about being a mom and being a DJ. I know for me, I struggle with sleep because going from like a club DJ to a mom, we're
Yeah.
programmed to stay up late, and then we have children and they're up all hours. So my biggest struggle, I think, as a mom DJ has been figuring out how to sleep.
Yeah. How old are yours?
They are 9 and 15.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. I only have the one and he's 4. I feel like it has gotten a little easier, but oh man, that first like year, I mean, so many struggles in that just because I was like breastfeeding and pumping and like being at weddings and trying to make a bride understand that I basically packed my food instead of eating the catering and went out in my car and ate and pumped at the same time. And I was like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
And then even though they knew that I was going to be doing that, there was one wedding I'll never forget. I walked in and the bride looked panicked and she was like, "Where's TJ?" Even though I had said like I'm going to sneak out for 30 minutes. And at that point I was just like, I can't like manage all of this. And felt like it was just too much. And I mean, I'm like, hats off to anyone in the wedding industry that first, like having a baby in the wedding industry is so hard. And even my female DJs, I feel like they're like, can I have a kid in this industry? And that's like, I hate that we even have that, that mindset as females in this industry and in entertainment in general, in the entertainment industry. But I hear you. Like I mean, you're constantly trying to manage like the attention seeking of your child, but also trying to respond as quickly as possible to clients through email or phone or apologizing. Like, I mean, there's been so many times I've been on Zoom, like inquiry consultations, and my 4-year-old's like walking in, like, I have to go pee pee. And I'm like, sorry.
Of course. Always when you're on the phone with a client,
Always.
always.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things, and I've had to take him, to meetings with me because I didn't have another option at the time, and I feel like we just start to have this mindset where it's like, you know what, I'm going to shrug this off, and it's not going to be perfection, and this is just life, and hopefully they understand, and I'm just going to roll with it and make it happen anyways. And I feel like once I changed my mindset from like the perfection, like I'm not, like I have a child now and I have to balance that, and they just have to be understanding or they're not going to be my ideal client anyways. And then just being like, it's going to be okay, like I'm still showing up for them even though I'm balancing this. I feel like I like let some pressure off my shoulders once I changed my own mindset there.
Yeah, we learn to give ourselves grace, which is powerful. I was just thinking about this. I was not doing weddings when I was pregnant. I was doing festivals, and I was doing more festival vending with my clothing line. I was
Yeah.
DJing. I was DJing like kid community events, probably some private parties. I was DJing a big reggae festival though, and that's when I
Yeah.
think my baby went breech. Was I was DJing for one of my favorite artists, and like I was like, "Ow!" So I think there was just a lot of pressure all around that day. And
Yeah.
but yeah, thinking about that, I never thought about like yeah being pregnant and the pressure of a wedding, and being on your feet for that long and all of that. I did continue to do my other businesses while pregnant with both kids because I was feeling good. I wasn't going to let it stop me, but I could see
Yeah.
that being very challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely was. If I have another one, I won't do that to myself. I've told myself because I was pregnant and still doing weddings. I was 2 weeks past my due date and still doing weddings.
Wow.
And I mean, my midwives at the time were like, TJ, you have to stop. You have to tell these next couples you will not be there, because it was almost like subconscious at that time. I didn't want to let down any of my couples. I wanted to be there myself instead of like an associate. And I think that's why, like, he was in there cooking for so long because I wanted to do these weddings.
That's funny. Yeah. Wow. So your
Yeah.
kids were like mine. Mine. Both when they were in the womb, they heard a lot of music. Is your
Yeah.
kid pretty musical?
He is. And I mean, I have I dabble with keyboard at home. So like he'll come in and kind of like play around on it with me. And he has a little keyboard too. And Jared, my husband, plays a little bit of guitar. So like we mess around at home just to try to introduce him to music a lot. It's kind of funny. Like I feel like maybe I'm so different from other DJs in this, but I realized because I'm playing music all the time, when I'm in a car, I used to just ride in silence because it was like I needed that mental break from music, I guess. And my husband would always be like, why? Like, why do you ride in silence? How do you, I can't stand, like, I don't know how you do that. And I was just like, I don't know. Like, I like the silence, I guess, because I'm in like just in music all the time, whether I'm prepping playlists or, like practicing at home or actually in events. When I got in my car, I was like, silence. Like, it was comforting to me. But I realized with my son, I'm like, oh, like I'm actually not introducing him to music as much because I'm not playing music in the car ever. So I've changed that a lot in the last 6 months on purpose to be like, I'm playing music in the car around him. And I've noticed like he absolutely like, yeah, he's a total dancer, just like me and my husband, like loves to dance. So we have a lot of dance parties. We had a lot of dance parties during pandemic, which I'm sure you probably did too.
Yes, yes, yes. Wow. I have a friend who their son has never like watched TV ever, and they listen to a ton of podcasts, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I was like, I was impressed. I was like, wow, go you. But I did find a fun science podcast called Brains On that my son got into for a while. We still listen to it sometimes, but
Yeah.
yeah, something we
Love
can do.
it.
But yeah, kids in music, it's a big thing. That's kind of what got me into moving into more of my own events instead of shadowing my husband, who's a DJ, was the kids wanted to come. They wanted to come to the parties and they couldn't. So I said, well, let's throw you a party. And the kids love it.
Yeah.
They need it. And I think it's so important to introduce them to music early and dance because, like, if they haven't experienced it at a young age and you throw them in as a teenager, it's going to be so awkward. I remember my
Yeah.
first concerts where I was like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's more natural when you start them out young.
Yes. I mean, my son will absolutely be. I tried to put him in a hip hop class this year and he just wasn't quite ready, but that's going to happen.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, my son's got that vibe too, like the break dancer. Like
Yeah.
he's got his own style for sure. He's kind of wavy. It's just like
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a good thing. Which
yeah,
like, I mean, let him be in his moment.
totally for sure. So now do you have a team of DJs, right? Female DJs.
Yeah. So about the time that I had had my son, and staying home with him during the week and breastfeeding and like being able to focus on that like bond, that was hard for me. Like I had postpartum depression really bad, like just transitioning from just being me and being used to like, constantly be on the go and owning my own company and doing all these things. So all of a sudden, like being forced to slow down, and like a forced slow down, I think is different than mindfully being like, I'm just gonna slow down when it was forced because like you have a child, a baby you have to take care of. It was almost like I like it was more sitting at home like I want to do this instead, but I can't because I have to be here with him. And that did make me depressed. But once I had changed that just in my own mind of being like, you know what, like what a blessing it is that I can go work just 2 days a weekend and make full-time living and work from home the rest of the week. Like any single mom or mom in general that like my husband worked crazy hours at the time, was never home. So it was like a single mom lifestyle. And I was just thinking like so many moms would be so grateful for this opportunity. Like this would be their dream basically, to be able to only be away from their kid like 1 day a week or 2 days a week and still be able to support their family and being able to focus on their kid during the week. And that's what opened my eyes. Like pretty much within that first year of having him, I set the foundation for Be Entertain events to be multi-op. And I specifically looked for single moms that would grow into this company. So we were built around the single mom concept. So most of my DJs are single moms, not all of them anymore. But we're definitely like a female empowered type of group where we are all friends and we all support each other. And we always try to like support each other and other things going on with our lives. And it was really just a feeling that I had once I had had him. I was like, this needs to be shared. Like
Mhm.
other women need to be able to experience this and how amazing this is that you can do this in this career. Because there's really not very many careers out there that would give that same opportunity, I think.
I'm with you 100%. I feel like it is like one of the best jobs I could think of
Yeah,
for a mom, a single mom.
yeah,
Absolutely. That's
yeah,
powerful. That's beautiful that you've created that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked out really well. And then now they're like great friends of mine, which was an unexpected surprise, of course.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm working on growing my team. I have one she's one of my best friends. She was in my wedding.
Yeah,
Yeah, she does her own thing, but we collaborate and she'll cover my when I get double booked and she
yeah,
got my back, I got hers, we're a team, but
yeah,
it's interesting growing from just, solo up into a multi-op because I'm at this point where I've branded everything under DJ RunDat, and
yeah,
now I have a business name, Royal Roots, but I'm like, I was gonna do it this year, and I'm like, I'm gonna just no, I don't want to add too much more to my plate. Like we're coming
yeah,
out of like craziness and we're
yeah,
still in craziness and
yeah,
I like there's a lot it's gonna happen but I'm in a very small area. My town's less than 900 people, so but
yeah.
I would love, what is some tips to, growing from solo up into building a team.
Yeah, I think I learned some hard lessons in the beginning where I didn't have the processes in place for a multi-op that I should have. So it was more of like learning how to manage a team and manage other people's expectations, like setting the right expectations of what you wanted from them or what they needed from you, and just being a really good leader. So it was more of I learned pretty quickly that I was like, I need to focus on being a really good leader and supporter and business owner with great processes and expectations so they like were on the same page as far as them and me, and making sure that I showed up for them the same way that I expected them to show up for me. And I'm still working on that. I mean, I've been a multi up for a while now, and even now I'm like, I need to tweak this or I need to tweak that so it's better or better organized, instead of like just having to worry about myself and my own calendar and my own things. So it was a lot of just kind of going back to like business 101, really, of saying like, here's like our objectives of the company, here's what we're built on, here's our goal, like here's our, the goals that we want to meet this year, whether it's financial or skill set or whatever. And that seems to be a little easier when we're just doing it for ourselves, because it's kind of like in our head, we don't have to necessarily write it down. And then going from that to having a team and being like, oh, I need to write this down and be very clear, and just great at being a really good communicator with a
Mhm.
team so that everyone is on the same page and you're delivering the same type of experience, whether it's you or someone else. So
Yes.
that's been our biggest thing that we've had to just kind of like critique as we went along the way.
And so much, we learn so much just by doing, and it's like, okay, that
Yes.
doesn't work. Okay, that needs improved. And communication's everything, and systems. I've learned a lot about creating systems. I'm still
Yeah.
creating systems. I never had any systems
Yeah.
until probably COVID, and I hired the right team to help me create systems and
Yeah.
teach me along the way. Like, this is how you organize your podcast and your all your guests, and this is how
Yeah.
you organize all your social media and all your media and all your content. Like everything was like I
Yeah.
just needed that help, and
Yeah.
fortunately I was able to like source the right people. I tend to attract Virgos who are very organized and I'm not. And they've
Yeah.
been teaching me and it rubs off on me, but yeah, that is
Yeah.
so important, so thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And I think it's different for female DJs too. Like I'm sure you follow like a lot of the great private event wedding DJs in the US are male, like our male counterparts. And I follow almost all of them and I listen to their podcasts and I'm like, I'm definitely a like, go find someone who's doing what you want to do and find out how they did it. And listen to their success stories. But I did feel like even earlier on when I was listening to a lot of their stuff, it was like, hey, do as much as you can do yourself because no one's going to do it better than you do it. Or, like you do have to wear a lot of the hats and you just got to power through that, and don't pay for all these extra services unless you really have to or until you really have to. And I took that advice earlier on, but I think I've realized in the last year, like I have a business coach too, and she helped me realize this. And she was like, TJ, like you're like, that's great advice for a lot of DJs, but we're like women, which means we, like most women, like handle the finances and we handle our household and we take care of our kids and we want to show up and be there with our family and our friends. And those like relationships are so important to us. We're just different. And so we have to, like, our businesses have to be different at the same time. And I think it's controversial in the wedding industry, but it's always like that fine line of like, do I automate everything or do I personalize everything? And for me, I realized I was like, you know what? Like, no, I can give a better experience by pretty much automating and outsourcing anything that I possibly can. And that gives me more time to work on the things that only I can work on. And that has like been leaps and bounds for me since I took that advice.
Yes. Well, good for you for learning that, because that's what I preach and teach. Like when I'm speaking in Vegas, my topic is how to outsource like a boss and
Yeah.
grow your business. Because if it well, one of my new mottos is if it ain't fun, I don't want none. Okay? So like if it doesn't bring you joy and
I
light you
love
up,
it.
I don't want to be doing it. Like I
Yeah.
like to understand, yes, if I need to go make an edit in my website, like I'd like to know how to do that. Like I like to know at least the basic level of how to do things within the business. And but then if I have to do it myself, but I'd rather outsource that to someone who loves graphic design, who loves video editing, who
Yes.
loves research. Like I don't know, like things that take so much time, like we need to outsource those as moms. Like thinking about, I have about 5 hours a day of prime focus time before the kids are back from school. So
Yes.
that's 25 hours a week. That's not a whole lot, and that time flies
Right.
by. And I have to split that time up because I'm really passionate about my self-care. Like I have to like,
Me
okay,
too. Yes.
the appointments in and work on my business and
Yeah.
connect with, build relationships with my brides, my vendors, see my friends. I have a lot of friends. Like
Yeah.
time for me, time alone. I need that too. I need the silence a little bit too, but not in the car. I
Mhm.
love music in the car. I thought that was like, whoa, that's kind of weird. I've never
Yeah,
heard.
I thought I was weird too. That's changed though now. Like now I love music in the car.
That's
So
cool. Yeah.
yeah, I'm on the same wavelength. I mean, like females are just a little different, I think, in the way that what we need out of our lives to like truly be happy. And that was a hard lesson for me. I'm very stubborn. I'm just like, I'll do it myself. Like, I don't need help. And I'm really glad that I finally was like, no, TJ, you need to like let somebody else do that and focus on things that actually, yeah, bring you joy. Like, I love that you said that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I think maybe one thing that stops people from outsourcing is they're control freaks. And there's four personality types. My top one's promoter, my second one's supporter, my third is controller, and my least is analytical. And so I attract some analyzers that can help me organize and things, create systems. But I'm not a controller. I have to have some flexibility as parents. Like, we never know what's going to happen. I know you and I
Right.
have been trying to connect and do this interview for a while, and I'm so happy that we were finally getting our time. I knew when the time was right, but it was like life kept happening to both of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. I mean, and that is like, that's one of the great things though about being DJs is we do have more flexibility in our lives than what other people do. Like I could never go back to a 9 to 5. I could never do it.
No, I get to do whatever I want every day. And
Yeah.
I'm my new thing is I'm getting really strict with the calendar. I'm putting things in, everything in, like as like, exercise and like, say your affirmations in the morning and drink your water. Like everything's
Yeah.
going into the calendar now because it just helps me stay in action and not just be like, wait, what am I supposed to do today? And then
Yeah, like, yeah, I agree. I'm the same way. I love to like, my favorite thing to do is just to wake up and kind of write out my day. Like, even though I know what I'm doing, but just to like reiterate that, it just clears my mind. And I'm the same way. Like, I love to get up and like, I feel like I have a coach for everything, but I have like my business coach. And I have like my health coach, that she's like a IFBB pro and she's on it. But I'm sitting here with my gallon of water this morning and she's on me all day and just, like every aspect having support and all those things, and sitting down and making sure you block out the time to do all of those things, because everything in life takes energy and time. I feel like time is the most valuable thing to us because Americans are just so like go 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 all the time,
Ah,
and blocking that out, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, like I have peace of mind, and I'm not as anxious or I'm not as stressed because I know everything's planned out that I need to accomplish today, and it's just life changing when you get organized.
yes, it really is, and it's like a. I haven't mastered it yet. I don't know if I ever will, but
Yeah, I
like
don't think anyone ever does.
like I just figured out last night, I was like, why are my Google events, why am I getting so many emails about them? Like, I don't want the email
Yeah.
alerts. I want just a phone alert or like a notification, not an email. I figured that one out. So I was proud. But time is our only non renewable resource. And it is precious, and our energy is precious. And, especially as moms, we're always on, but like, that's but we get to make that time for our own selves. And the more scheduled I think we are, the better. That's been a hard one for me to learn, but definitely being more intentional with my time and energy after, I think, just that slowing down that we just experienced was so good for me.
Yeah. I
I,
think it's good for all of
it was
us.
like, oh, time to think. I never had time to think before. I was go, go, go. Yeah.
Yeah. And like shifting priorities. I think that was so huge for so many people. I think that's really what, like, the best thing that came out of pandemic and everybody like having to stay home was just a total shift in like what's actually important in life and what's not. And I think that's why we're seeing the trickle down effect in like jobs and employment and all of these things, because people are like, like realizing time is precious, and well, I don't want to do that. That's not, enough of a priority or as valuable as my time to do that instead of this or whatever the thing is. But I've noticed that in our society that people are definitely realizing, you know what, that doesn't bring me joy, or that doesn't make me happy, or that's really not that important, which was probably a good shift for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So curious, how did you spend your time during the pandemic, like as far as your business?
Um, I love to learn. I'm like a constant, I'm one of those people like I'm just constantly learning. So honestly, I pretty much dove right into my company. I didn't take the time off that some other people maybe took. It was just that I shifted from like being go 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 out and about working, whereas I dove right into learning live stream pretty much like first week of shutdown, and that was kind of like, how am I going to save my company? Because I felt the pressure of that. And I feel like a lot of us were scared and terrified of like, oh my gosh, how long is this going to last? Like our sole income is events, and no events are going to be happening anytime soon. And where do I go from here? And I felt the pressure of my girls, like not even just for myself, but I was like, how am I going to support these other women that need income and need, like, I can't shut down. It's not an option. So I pretty much invested right away into live stream cameras and learning a lot about videography and live streaming, where before I didn't have any experience in that field at all. And I just dove right into that. So I spent probably my first 2 months of shutdown testing and practicing and watching YouTube videos and learning everything I could about live stream and like cleaning up my processes too. I had a business coach at the time, which was a good thing. And it was like going through our website and redoing a lot of our branding and just doing a lot of the things that I didn't have time to do
Mm,
normally. I wouldn't have had time to do. Um, and so that was a blessing to me because I was like, okay, I can kind of shift, pivot, I guess was like the word of the year, right?
yeah.
But it did, like it kept us, we had record breaking sales in 2020, which is
Wow.
insane. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was because I live streamed pretty much almost all of our ceremonies from June on. I live streamed all of their ceremonies, most of them complimentary, just so that they continue to have their weddings and we didn't have cancellations.
Okay.
So it saved us a lot.
Wow.
Um, so I don't know if I necessarily slowed down. It was nice to have my husband home, and I feel like it was really good for our marriage that year, and that came out of it. But I feel like I just shifted into like learning a lot and working from home, which was so great compared to like being out of the home as much.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
that's awesome. Yeah, I definitely experimented a lot with the live streaming. I have a goal I'm going to set back up again. I'm like try to get back on Twitch again, just to mess around and have some fun. I was maybe going to do that this week, maybe this weekend. Now you're reminding me. Oh yeah, I did say I was going to do that.
yeah, yeah.
I have a little resistance to it because it was a whole nother beast live streaming. So
It was like we're learning how to DJ all over again in a different way. Like, I mean, I remember, I mean, the DFW area, we did a Twitch like with a bunch of DJs that Nate Nelson put together for us. And I remember us like setting it up. And even that was whole different, that was different than live streaming like an event. So it's just a different setup, even from that of DJing live on Twitch or something. And I remember sitting there being like, I don't know what I am doing. Like, we set that all up. We were learning how to DJ in a different way that none of us had ever done before.
yeah. Yeah. My one of my things I just remind myself all the time, I'm like, just have fun. Like, just
Yeah,
have fun. Like, just have fun. That's
yeah,
what I tell myself. People are
yeah,
like asking for advice. I'm like, just have fun.
yeah. It was fun though. I mean, I loved watching everybody on Twitch.
Oh
It's
yeah.
too bad that none of us, I mean, a lot of us just don't have the time to do it regularly,
Mhm.
but it
Yeah.
was great, watch everybody. I loved it.
Yeah, it was really fun to get to see everybody DJ
Yeah.
and their style and get to know their personality because you were kind of forced to interact with your audience
Mhm.
more on the microphone. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was like such a funny experience when I like think back because I would do it in like my daughter's room or like move it
Yeah.
around. I was like, I don't have a space. I don't have like a really
Right.
big house. Like,
Yeah.
like I don't know where I could be to live stream today, but we're
I
gonna
know.
figure it out.
I know. I think we had one event that asked it. Well, we had a couple, I guess, that we live streamed, got hired for, and our situation was the same way. And I have one picture where one of my girls was actually DJing the event, and I was kind of doing like all of her audio and managing everything for it. So she was doing it, I think, in like a Zoom type situation for this company. And she had a 1 year old at the time, and she was like, I don't have anyone to watch her. And I was like, bring her with you. And so I'm sitting there like I have a picture of us and she's DJing with like one of our photo booth backdrops behind her to, like give it a good, so it looks legit. And I'm sitting there with her baby on my hip and holding a camera in the other one and like fixing things and walking around and doing stuff. It was hilarious. But I mean, that's life and we just make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds heavy. I'm like a baby. I was just holding my friend's 4-month-old the other day. I was like, oh, I forgot how heavy these babies are. And cameras too after holding them for too long. Well, yeah, we got to make it work. There's no other choice. We're not quitters.
Yep.
Yeah, there's always a way, right?
Always a way. Yeah, definitely different scenarios that came out of the last 2 years that are interesting.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. I like to look back and I actually really like to look back at like my phone and all the photos and funny videos. I'm like, what was going on? Like that whole live streaming thing was such a funny journey for me. uh,
Yeah.
like at home, 11 o'clock, like playing for online radio, like
Yeah.
trying to homeschool the kids.
Oh
Like,
my gosh. I didn't have to dive into that.
yeah,
So my sympathies are with you.
yeah, you got lucky there. That was probably the hardest thing I'd ever done. Yeah. Well, it's been so great connecting with you. How can we find you online and best support you?
So our website is just all spelled out. Our company is Be Entertained Events. So it's just beentertainedevents.com. Same thing on Instagram at Be Entertained Events. My personal DJ Instagram is She Is DJ TJ. And same on Facebook, just we're under Be Entertained Events. Super easy to find.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It was so great to connect with you. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Go to my website to claim your free gift, a digital copy of my best-selling book, How to Start a DJ Business. www.djrundat.com. Follow me on all social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at DJ RunDat. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. To learn how you can book me or work with me, go to my website or email me at michelle@djrundat.com.